Now this fly is, we call it a black eye because in the water it looks like somebody's got a black eye. It is a great winter steelhead fly. We've been using it on the Grand Ronde for some time now. We start out with 2 strands of purple wool yarn. So what we're going to do is cut that off in a nice length, separate out 2 fibers out of this 4-strand yarn, and this makes a nice skinny body for these flies. Okay, so we've separated out 2 strands. And we're going to start this at the front of the hook, just so we have a nice uniform body as we go back here. And you want to start the body of the fly right in front of where the thread hangs down at the point of the hook. That's really important, especially for spay flies and low water types of flies, that the body is not back too far. Okay, so we've done that. We're going to grab some large oval silver tinsel. And here again, since it's large material, we're going to start this up at the front of the hook and work it back so that we have a nice uniform body. And we're going to take some fine oval tinsel. This is going to be a counter rib over the top of the hackle. On any of the spay flies that you're going to want to tie, you always need a counter rib over the hackle to make sure that the fish's teeth don't chew it up and or casting chews it up. We'll use blue-eared pheasant for the spay hackle on this, and it's fairly fragile material. So next we'll bring our thread forward about halfway, and we're going to take a blue-eared pheasant feather, pull the fuzz off the bottom. So we've pulled the fuzz off the bottom, and we're going to take the feather and tie it tip in, so separate it out so that you can fold some of the fibers back to tie the tip of the feather in. Now, I set that feather aside, and we start wrapping our body. As you wrap your body, hold the tinsel back out of your way and wrap nice uniform wraps. A lot of the old spay patterns call for floss bodies, and I find for fishing that the wool body works a whole lot better. Now when you've brought this body up to the thread, you want to take your blue-eared pheasant feather and tie that in with 1 wrap of body material. Hold on to that with your left hand and bind your blue-eared pheasant down all the way to the front of the hook with your thread. It gets a little tricky sometimes holding these many materials in your hand, but once you've done that and you've trimmed that off, then you want to fold the hackle back on your blue-eared pheasant so that it comes off one side of the feather. We do that with our scissors like so. Now the next trick is to hold that blue-eared pheasant feather out of the way while you wrap the rest of your body. So you wrap your body up to within about 1 eye length of the eye of the hook. That's where we're going to end our body. Bind that material down. Now we're going to take the larger oval silver tinsel and we're going to wrap that forward. And here again, that blue-eared pheasant feather is going to be in your way no matter what you do, so you just have to work around it. Try and go 5 wraps. And tie that off. I didn't quite get that trimmed well enough. Okay, now we're going to take this blue-eared pheasant feather and we're going to wrap it right next to this oval tinsel. You want it to, that oval tinsel in front of the blue-eared pheasant feather so that it sort of protects the stem of this feather along the body. So we're going to take the wraps, put them right behind the silver tinsel, every wrap. And as you see, we kind of fold those fibers back so that they sweep backwards on that blue-eared. And take 1 or 2 wraps of the feather right in front of the body. Kind of gives it a little bit larger hackle at the top end. Trim that off. Now you're going to need a bodkin for this next step. You want to counter rib this feather. So holding the bodkin in one hand, you start wrapping the fine silver tinsel the opposite direction in a crisscross effect over the top of your larger tinsel. When you get up to the blue-eared pheasant fibers, you have to sort of separate those out so that you're not going to bind those down too much with this tinsel. And that's what the bodkin comes in handy for. Just kind of separating out those fibers, running it through like the old style matukas would be. Now, since you've wrapped this material the opposite direction of what you've done with the rest of it, you have to sort of bind that down and hold it back behind so that the material is caught by the thread really, really well. Otherwise, that counter rib's going to slip out on you. Okay, so now we've got that. We're going to take a second hackle. We're going to tie a peacock breast feather on here for the hackle, and so you want to take the fuzzy fibers off the bottom. And here again, we'll tie it in by the tip, so you want to separate the fibers out for the tip section. Tie those right on the front. Take about 3 wraps. Ooh. And then bind the fibers backwards so that they flow backwards. And here again, we want to fold these fibers back so that everything is sort of streamlined and flows back towards the back of the hook. And stroke the hackle back as you wrap it forward. As you can see, you're starting to get that black and blue pattern similar to somebody's black eye. And steelhead just love this fly. It's just a great steelhead fly, especially for winter fish in cold weather. Okay, so we've got the hackle on there. Now we're going to take a couple of strips of bronze mallard fibers for the wing. And here we have the bronze mallard with the stem attached. We're going to cut off about a 1/4 inch section of that. Set that aside. That's one feather. We're going to do the same with the other feather. A 1/4 inch section of that. Set that aside. Now we take the 2 sections, put them together so that the tips are together on those. Set it on top of the hook shank. Now on this fly, you want the wing to go back about as far back as the end of the body. Hold those fibers together up on top of the hook. 2 or 3 nice wraps to bind it down. And pinch everything back so that it stays on top of the hook shank. Bind it down 3 or 4 times really, really good. And we're going to trim the ends of this bronze mallard off. And any fibers that of the hackle that might be in your way there. Holding onto the wing, bind it down really good so it doesn't slip. And we'll whip finish it. And there we have a black eye.